It's the one time a year we get snow in Texas, and I'm here to tell you, yes, you can drive your sports cars in this ice. It's definitely not what they're made for, but if you're smart about it, you can survive and even have a little bit of fun. I've driven my C5 and now my C7 in the snow every single year, and I've never had any problems. So I'm going to tell you some tips and some things that I keep in mind while driving in these nasty conditions. First thing you want to look at is your car. Now the biggest limiting factor is really just going to be your tires. In all the years past, I've run the Continental Sport 02s, and this year I have the Continental Sport 02s on the rear and Pirelli Rossos on the front. I don't usually like to mix and match tires, but those Pirelli Rossos were on sale for $200 each on Tire Rack, and I just couldn't turn it down at the time. When it comes to the tires, the tread pattern matters a lot more than the compound, because in the snow, they're gonna be so cold, you're not gonna build any heat, that they're gonna be rock hard anyways. So it really just matters how many tread blocks you have around the tire. Now for the Sport 02s and these Pirelli Rossos that I'm running, they actually have quite a bit of blocks on the tread, and that's lines this way and not this way, and that's what will help you get that forward bite on the snow and kind of dig into that powder a little bit. If you're running like a 200 treadwear summer tire or a drag radial, it might not be the best idea to venture out into this snow, but if you're running something a little less aggressive that has more of that tread, you'll probably be okay. So the second note with the car is you're going to want to take some air out of those tires. You're gonna get a little bit wider footprint. It's just like you hear off-roaders and Jeeps airing down when they get to the trail. Basically, you just want as much rubber on the road as you can get. The lower your pressures, the wider your contact patch is gonna be. I personally was running 20 all the way around the car. If you have a rear-wheel drive car, throw some weight in the trunk. So for me, I was going to the gym, so I had my gym bag, my girlfriend had her gym bag, and with the Corvette having a transaxle, there's honestly a good amount of weight in the rear. But other cars like a Mustang or a Camaro, they don't really have that weight balance, so you can load down your trunk with just some heavy items. You don't have to go crazy and throw sand in there, but just a couple heavy items, and try to pick stuff that won't roll around too much, because that'll be kind of annoying as you drive. So that's kind of it when it comes to your car. Now we're gonna talk about the conditions and what you need to keep in mind and how to approach driving a little bit differently than normal in order to keep yourself out of a ditch. There's really two main sets of conditions that we get, at least here in Texas. Now, a lot of the less snowy states, this will apply. If you're somewhere like Minnesota, you've got a whole different set of rules to play by. So this video might not be for you. One is gonna be when the snow is fresh, and the second is gonna be as it starts to melt over the next couple days as the temperatures rise and we're not getting any more precipitation. So I'm always out when it's fresh because I think that's when it's the most fun to drive a sports car, before the roads get kind of rutted out and start becoming that slushy, nasty mix. I like to get out early, get a feel for it, maybe take a lap or two around the neighborhood and see kind of what the conditions are like. See how your car is doing, like we talked about the tires. Do you really have enough grip to feel confident getting up onto the road with potentially other cars? More stuff to crash into, more corners, and also hills and a lot of other things to navigate. It's kind of funny, but little hills and inclines that I don't even think about on a daily basis can kind of become something that needs to be navigated and a little bit of a challenge in the ice, especially with a car that's not really built for it. So like I said, just a few laps around the neighborhood to kind of get comfortable, feel out the car, and get a hold of a few of the techniques you'll need for driving. This footage is from the first day of the snow this year, 2026, and it was super low traction. We literally just had straight ice. The biggest thing you're going to want to focus on is being very gentle with your controls. So you might notice your car will kind of slide, maybe it'll understeer and just, kind of, you turn the wheels and the car just feels like it's just plowing straight even though you've got some steering angle on. And the other thing you might get is a little bit of oversteer. So for my Corvette, which I have my little model here, the Corvette kind of would crab walk a lot. So it's moving the way I want to go, but it wasn't really going in a straight line. And that's just because it's rear wheel drive and the rear wheels were not hooking. So the biggest thing is you want to be gentle with your controls. So whatever's happening, whether you're in control or not, whether the car's heading where you want it to or not, you don't want to do anything drastic. You don't want to stomp on either pedal, gas or brake. The only pedal it's safe to stomp on is probably going to be the clutch. And then also with the steering wheel, you don't really want to jerk it around too much. You just want to be very patient with it. As the car rotates, just kind of keep the steering wheel pointed down the street where you want it to go. Now this is more difficult in the ice because in the dry, you'll feel the steering wheel naturally kind of want to go to where the car's headed. But in the ice, you don't really have a lot of traction, so it's kind of easy to throw the wheel around even more than it is in the dry, and that's something that can catch you out. So again, you just want to be super gentle, super patient with all the controls, and the main thing is going to be just checking your speed to make sure you're not going faster than you'll be able to stop. Angular momentum, which is kind of a complicated thing to say, is going to be something you're going to want to focus on a lot in the snow, and it can also teach you a lot as a driver. So a lot of times you'll feel that the car is not necessarily moving in a straight line. It's not moving with traction to all four tires as it does in the dry. This can be a scary feeling for people who aren't used to it, but it's also part of the fun for those who are looking for it. You just really want to feel between the throttle, the brakes, and the steering. They're all three tools you use to keep the car moving in the direction you want. I recommend going to a parking lot to play with this. I don't know about you guys, but my neighborhood has cars on the side of the street, people out walking, everybody gets out in the snow. So I just try to find a quiet parking lot and play with this. Try to work on maneuvering the car and playing with all three inputs that you have to make the car go the way you want it to go, even though it's not really moving straight in that direction like it would in the dry. Following that, I would also recommend traction control be fully off. Traction control is really not made for driving on straight ice like we had here in Texas, and it's just gonna get confused. I know I got a lot of ABS faults as well because I can't disable that in the C7. It just gets confused because it's like, hey, look, we're going 20 miles an hour and all four wheels are locked. These systems aren't really a great help in these conditions because they're just so far outside of the normal operating window, and the car does not behave at all as the computer would expect it to. So once you've played around and really focused on that pedal feel, which is, probably just using your big toe on the throttle pedal and being very gentle with the brakes and understanding what you can and can't do with each pedal because of the limited traction, you might be ready to hit the road. I wouldn't recommend going too far unless you really have to, but if you do have to hit the road or want to, your two biggest enemies are going to be your route and then the other cars. So when it comes to your route, even if it means you have to drive a bit further, it will definitely be worth it to avoid any single lane roads because a 2-lane or more road is always going to give you more margin to where if you lose control, there's more distance between the curb and then even potentially a ditch or trees or fences or whatever else is past the road that you don't want to hit in your sports car. Now, other cars are harder to control, but you can manage where you are compared to them. So if somebody's just absolutely flying down the road and you don't feel comfortable with that, just let them go. Just move over as much as you can, let them go by. And if somebody's tailgating you, I would do anything you can to try to just pull off and let them go because following distance is very big. You need to watch this for yourself and for the other cars behind you. You're not going to be able to stop as quick as you might hope in the ice. You're just not going to get the grip. So if somebody's tailgating you, you need to manage that situation and get them out from behind you because they could cause a crash like this one that happened close by to me where there was a little bit of an emergency in front, and so this car slows down and this truck tailgating them goes right into the back of them because they don't have the grip to slow down like they would normally. Also, you want to watch your following distance to the cars in front of you and try to make sure that you have a good amount of space. Now, another thing is cars next to you. So like I said, I was kind of going out of my way to stay on these 2-lane roads, but some people just feel comfortable driving like normal, and that's good for them, but they might not really know what they're doing. You might not know what you're doing, and sometimes the conditions can just throw a curveball in. Like you've seen in some of these clips, my Corvette was kind of fishtailing, and while it wasn't wildly out of control, it also isn't really going in a straight line down the road, so it's not really great to have somebody next to you. So here you can see this car kind of was just adjacent to me, and I just lift off. I'm just like, dude, you know what, go on. I don't want to sit next to you because if anything happens to you or me and we lose control a little bit, and it could even just be a minor slide, and that's easily savable. But because we're so close together, that could be a crash, and especially with a lot of these sports cars, that could be an easy total. But like I said, you can't really control the drivers around you, but you can control what you do, and even though it might be kind of lame, there's certain things you can do to just stay out of the way of all these idiots. And the last thing I want to talk about for the fresh snow is manual transmissions. So my car's a manual, yours might not be. I don't really know what it's like to drive an automatic sports car in the snow because I've never done it. One tool that I used a lot was just putting the car in second or third and then slowly letting the clutch out, and I was able to find traction that way rather than pressing on the gas and trying to get going in first gear. And the funny thing is, in the snow and ice, you're not really gonna stall, because if you dump the clutch too quick, you'll literally just sit in one spot with the wheel spinning. So you can let the clutch out super slow and you'll feel the rear start to bite. That's really how I drove most of the time, was using the clutch to get going whenever I had to come to a stop. And another benefit to the manual is being able to use engine braking very well. So some cars do and don't let you really do this with the paddles, but in my car, what I was doing a lot of times was I was going around 25 to 30 miles an hour in third gear, and then if I let off the throttle, it would start to slow down. And if I was heading downhill or coming towards a stop, I would even put it back into second and just kind of let the engine braking effect slow me down, partially because it's a lot more patient than I am. You know, it's not as dramatic as pushing on the brake pedals, but you do need to be careful, because if you do this too aggressively, you can get the rears to lock up just a little bit. Normally in the dry, you would just feel the wheels pull the engine up to speed as you let the clutch out, but in the ice, what can happen is you can kind of lock the rears and you'll feel it kind of sliding around behind you, because the rear tires are spinning slower than the vehicle's moving, and that causes them to lose some traction. And this is all just stuff that you don't really get to feel in the dry unless you're pushing a car like 9/10 or more. So it's kind of fun to play with these things and learn how they work in the snow. We don't all get the opportunity to track our cars and learn about them at the limit, but if you ever do end up in a sketchy situation on the street just due to conditions, or maybe you're pushing it a little too hard, learning the feel of being out of control in the snow can be a huge tool to help you out of those situations other days. So now we're moving on to when the snow is melting. Now this can honestly be even sketchier than when the snow is fresh, in my opinion. So this year we had a solid sheet of ice, probably about 3 inches thick, and the first couple of days it was consistent. Everywhere you go, it feels just about the same. There was a thin layer of powder on top that gave you just a little bit of traction, but not a lot. Now when the snow starts to melt, you'll notice there's a lot of varying grip levels. So some of the slush you can actually get decent traction in. Some of it's honestly just mud from the sand they put down if the snow is completely melted out in that part. And some places you'll even have fully dry concrete. Whether the city plowed it or there was just enough traffic to melt out those tram lines in the street. But I kind of think that the varying conditions creates a little bit more opportunity for you to get caught out. When going from a pretty dry area where you have a lot of grip back onto some ice, you can kind of get caught out with your speed, because you get back to that mindset of normal driving down a dry road, and then once you hit the ice, you're carrying that speed and you expect to have grip and traction, but you won't. Now a lot of the roads near me, there's melted patches and then slick patches, so you can't really get cocky going down the road, because in a moment you could be on ice again, and now you're completely out of control at 35 miles an hour. You also want to be careful with the transition between the ice and kind of a more melted out area. If you have a little bit of a slide going on the ice and you hit the pavement, well now you can kind of get this high side, because once your tires grip up, it'll start to shoot you the other way as the car wants to snap straight. And again, this is a place where you really need to be slow and careful with your inputs, because once you feel the car moving around, gripping up, doing all these things, you don't want to overreact, because that's when you see all these pickup truck dudes just totally spin out into the ditch. More than likely, they're just throwing the wheel one way or the other, panicking and slamming on the brakes, locking up their wheels, or maybe they just are being really aggressive with the throttle, whether they're trying to have fun or just don't know what they're doing. But these transitions between high and low grip when it comes to more melted sections and slush versus actual straight ice can be very difficult. You can see here as I was changing lanes, moving across the tram lines, I hit a little bit of the ice, so I lose the rear of the car for a moment. But then of course, once all my tires are back into the tram lines and back on the pavement, it grips right back up. If you're gonna be driving a lot, you need to pay attention to your area. Look out for which parts are getting dry faster, and pay attention to where the ice is remaining, because those areas could present more of a challenge. You can see here I was turning right and it kind of goes uphill. Now there was a truck coming out of that driveway, so I came in a little bit slower than I was when there wasn't anyone there. And what that did was I didn't have enough speed to get up that hill, so I kind of stalled out, and then I needed to use that kind of careful clutch technique again, even though a lot of the road is dry, this section was icy. So if you're going to be driving the same routes, just pay attention, try to keep a mental note of what areas are thawing out and what areas are still slick. Because if I was coming the other way and I was barreling down this dry street and now all of a sudden I need to come to a stop, but it's downhill and it's completely frozen, I could end up sliding out into traffic. There's just a lot of things to think about and kind of a lot of mental planning that goes into driving a sports car in these conditions. And the main reasons for that is, more than likely with your tire choice, you can't start, stop, or turn anywhere near as well as some of the other vehicles on the road, especially people that are running winter tires. Here in Texas, we get this maybe 1 week a year. So having a set of winter tires that sit around for the whole year and then maybe you can scramble and get them mounted in time for the snow just doesn't make sense. For me, driving like this has been fun and kind of just the way it is because I don't have a set of winter tires and I'm not going to buy a set of winter tires that I use 1 out of 52 weeks every single year. So if you do choose or have to take out your sports car, I hope you kind of bear in mind these tips and be really aware of where you're going, what you're doing, your speed, the angle at which you're traveling. And also, I hope you take a moment, go to a parking lot, and really get a feel for how your vehicle's acting in these conditions. It can be a lot of fun, and you can get everywhere you need to go without causing any damage or harm to your vehicle or yourself.